everyone, I just wanted to start this video off by saying for Christmas I got bought a tripod and ring light, and this is my first time using it, and I'm really determined to make more videos even if it means I have to film in the evening. So I thought getting a ring light would be ideal because I hate like evening or nighttime light. And this is more of a natural light. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below, but obviously I've still got to get used to it and work out how to use it properly. So this is my first attempt, but this video is going to be about my breastfeeding story with our second little boy, who is called Tyler, and he is currently 12 days old. Going back 4 years ago when my first son Aiden was born, I really wanted to breastfeed him. So in the hospital I asked for support and didn't really get much support with it. The midwife basically just grabbed my boobs and shoved them in his mouth. Didn't give me any like tips on how to position him, how to get him latched properly. Basically when I told them that it hurt, they said if it's going to hurt now it's always going to hurt, so you may as well bottle feed. Now being a first time mum, you're kind of like, I felt like I was a bit naive. I don't know about anyone else, but I kind of just went along with what the midwives told me. I thought, well, they must know best. So I switched him straight to a formula, probably after only 2 times of trying to get him to latch. Now I've had time to reflect on the situation. I really think that the way I was treated was really bad, and that I should have been offered more support with it. Obviously I've just had my second little boy, and before I gave birth I was so determined to breastfeed him. I wanted it more than anything in the world, and not being able to breastfeed my first son was one of my biggest regrets. I went into the hospital and thought, I'm not going to leave here until I've got latched down, until he's on my boob properly, and we've got breastfeeding down to a T. People see breastfeeding as this beautiful natural thing, and I just did not have that experience at all. If anything, it was an absolute horror story for me. So I'll start from the beginning. As you guys know, I had a planned cesarean, which was the best decision I've ever made, but that's a totally different video. When Tyler was born, he was whisked away straight away to the special care baby unit because he stopped breathing and went blue and floppy. He spent the whole of that day and night in the special care baby unit. I gave birth to him at 22 minutes past 9, and I didn't actually get to hold him until about 4 or 5 o'clock that evening. So the whole day that he was in a special care baby unit after I gave birth, I wasn't able to try and put him on the breast or anything because he was too poorly. He had to have a CPAP on, which was pumping air into his lungs, and had a tube down into his belly to get all his nutrition. The first time I was able to try and get him latched was the first time I tried to hold him, which was about 4 or 5 o'clock that evening. So we didn't set off to the best start. That night I was called down every time that he wanted to feed. So whenever he cried, basically, I got taken down from the ward upstairs to the ward downstairs in a wheelchair to try and get him latched. Getting him latched, well, that took a long time, and I got loads of help with it. You know, putting your nipple to the nose and getting them to open their mouth wide, and then bringing them to the breast rather than the breast to them. Got told how to do it all. I got him latched multiple times, and all the midwives said that his latch looked fantastic. Even though it looked fantastic, it felt like he was gnawing on my nipple. So every time he came off, my nipple looked like a lipstick, so it was flat one side and its normal shape the other side, which I was told it shouldn't look like that with a good latch. He was checked for tongue tie, but it just turned out that he has such a strong suck that when the midwife put her finger in to check for a tongue tie, he dented her finger. So you can imagine what that must feel like on your nipple. I tried over the next 2 or 3 days, because I was in hospital 3 days of him, to try and get him latched onto my nipple. I must have had support from about between 10 and 20 midwives, including 2 lactational specialists, to get him latched properly so it didn't hurt. He latched, but then he slipped off within like 2 seconds and became lazy and stopped sucking, and when he slipped off he was in the wrong position again, and I ended up getting really sore nipples, even with using lanolin nipple cream and everything to try and protect them. I tried nipple shields. My nipples were bleeding, they were red raw, and I couldn't take the pain. It got to the point where he would latch, and after one suck I'd just have tears streaming down my face because it was so painful. At the same time this was all going on, I was hand expressing my colostrum into 1ml syringes, which is what I also did with Ayden. I knew, because I've already had Ayden, that I've got a really high supply of milk and colostrum. So instead of hand expressing, I asked to be put on a breast pump so I could express my colostrum. Most women probably get about 1 or 2 mils of colostrum if they're lucky during the first day or two, and I was getting like 5 mils or more, 5 or 6 mils. Even though the midwives were like, wow, you've got enough colostrum that you could feed the entire ward. So I felt really lucky in that respect, like, oh, I've got a lot of milk, that can't be a bad thing. All the colostrum I was expressing, I was giving to him, and that seemed to be enough. About day 3 we started doing half breast milk and half formula, and that was the plan that I was going to stick with to go home with. That's what we did. So that evening we ordered a breast pump on Amazon Prime, so it would be delivered in time for us to get home from the hospital, which it was, and I continued with the plan. My milk came in on day 4, and I had so much milk that I didn't need to use any formula. I had enough milk so I could exclusively pump and give him all of that via a bottle. I wasn't trying to put him to the breast because my nipples were still healing, and I just couldn't get the latch right, even with multiple people supporting me with it. So I came to terms with that I was just going to exclusively pump, which I did, and my boobs got so engorged in the first day at home that we had to leave the hospital and go straight to the shops to buy a new bra, because I went from a 34D to a 36G because my breasts were just so engorged and so full of milk. The next day after I got home from the hospital, the midwife came to do her checks, and I was so uncomfortable, and she said, well, the swelling should go down in a couple of days. So I gave it a couple of days. She also said to start expressing every 3 hours for 10 minutes on each side, and I followed that religiously for about the next 4 days. My breasts, no matter how much I expressed, never stopped feeling engorged because I had such an oversupply of milk. I mean, I pumped 10 minutes on each side of my breast every 2 to 3 hours, and I was getting 220 mils in a bottle, which is an awful lot of milk. I'd have showers, and if you guys have seen my videos, you'll know how small my flat is. I would walk from the shower to the bedroom with my hands cupped under my breasts like that, and by the time I got to the bedroom, both my hands would be full of milk, and there'll be drips from the bathroom all the way to the bedroom because they were just constantly leaking. And after 4 days of doing the expressing like I was told, I started to get really feverish, and every night I'd have to sleep with no top on because I would soak the tops that I was wearing. I could wring them out. I had to lay on a towel during the night, and that would be soaked with breast milk and sweat. It's disgusting. And then I realised that I had grape-sized lumps under my arms that were hard as bullets, and they were extremely painful to touch. So I ended up going to the doctors who said to me that I needed to be put on antibiotics because I had an infection, but the normal antibiotics they put you on is penicillin or erythromycin, both of which I am allergic to, and they are the only antibiotics that don't go through the breast milk to the baby. So the antibiotic she had to put me on was clarithromycin, and she said that it does go through the breast milk to the baby, which broke my heart because I knew that for a week of taking these antibiotics I was going to have to pump to keep my supply up but throw all the milk away. And after having such an uncomfortable experience so far with engorgement and not being able to get him latched and my nipples bleeding from trying to get him latched, it hit me hard because, you know, I was trying to do the best for my baby, and I just got told that I wouldn't be able to feed him any of my breast milk for a week, and I'd have to put him on formula just so that he didn't get any antibiotics. She said it wouldn't be a massive issue, it would just make his stools a little bit more runny, but the fact he'd been in the special care baby unit and already had a lot of antibiotics because he aspirated some of the fluid when he was born, I didn't want him to have another lot of antibiotics in his system when he was only like a week old, because antibiotics aren't good. So I was like, right, whatever, I'm gonna have to do this. So I continued pumping, throwing it all away. 200 plus mils of milk I was throwing away every 3 hours, and started giving him formula. While I was doing this, the antibiotics weren't working. I just got to the point where I was just like, I'm over this. I'm in so much pain. My breasts were so hard, they were rock hard, they had lumps all over them, I had lumps under my arms, I had red patches on them. I was feeling really sick all the time because I had an infection. I just said, Pete, I can't do this anymore. I tried and tried and tried, and this was about 8 days of breastfeeding. So I was able to feed him my breast milk for a week, and I'm glad that I was able to do that. But basically it just got worse from there. So after I decided to stop breastfeeding, the advice I was given by the midwife was, if you want to stop breastfeeding, you just stop pumping and your milk will eventually dry up. So I stopped pumping and my breasts got really engorged. The antibiotics weren't working, so I went to the doctors and asked for some tablets to dry up my milk supply, which I had to fight for because they don't normally give them out anymore. She ended up giving me them. She said it's just one tablet that you take and it will do the trick. And we couldn't pick up that prescription until later that evening, so Pete went out to get it, and when he brought them home, on the box it said 8 tablets to be taken as directed, which is not what I was told at the doctors. I was in so much agony that I ended up calling NHS 111, who said that they can't go against what the doctor had said, but by everything I was telling them, all my symptoms, the doctor on the phone said, I think you need to go to A&E because there's a chance you're going to need some IV antibiotics, because the oral antibiotics I was on hadn't started working even after 2 days. The doctor said it should be in your system by now and you should start to feel better, but I hadn't been. So after I got off the phone, I went to A&E. I sat in A&E for 3 hours and then was told that I needed to be readmitted, and I spent a further 2.5 days in hospital, a further 2 nights in hospital. I had 4 lots of IV antibiotics, and after the 3rd lot I had still felt no difference because my breasts were just so engorged and there was such a bad infection going on. The antibiotics they put me on was clindamycin, which was, you know, it was obviously a lot stronger because it's going through your IV. It was so strong I could taste the antibiotics. So I had that, then I had my 4th lot, was seen by more lactational consultants who were trying to get me to breastfeed again, and I just couldn't because I've just got such an oversupply of milk. And a lot of people were telling me that having an oversupply of milk can sometimes be worse than having an undersupply of milk, because with an undersupply you can keep pumping and pumping and pumping and hopefully it will get your milk supply up to the point where you have enough. But with an oversupply, trying to get the milk supply to diminish and get a lot less is a lot harder to do, and especially when you're not putting the baby to the breast, because your boobs regulate themselves around your baby's feeds and stuff. And as I was exclusively pumping and doing it every 3 hours, my boobs just weren't getting the message and they weren't able to regulate themselves. So I just don't think I'd be able to carry on with it, and it's heartbreaking, but I've come to terms with it now. So I don't think there's physically any more that I could have done. I tried to get him latched multiple times. I got so much help from so many different midwives. I pumped, I gave him all of the colostrum that I had. I pumped and gave him my breast milk for a week with no formula, and I just pushed through the pain. And I was told by the midwives, oh, in a couple of days it'll get better, in a couple of days it'll get better, and I just kept waiting for those couple of days, and that day never came. And basically it got to the point where I was so miserable with it that I wasn't enjoying Tyler, I wasn't enjoying being a mum. And being on a breast pump for every 3 hours is so restricting because you have to be home from certain places. You have to be up in the night pumping when you're so tired. Like with a baby, like Tyler's not the best sleep at the moment. He's up every 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Sometimes he's up every hour. And having to be up pumping every 3 hours, I was just absolutely exhausted. Mentally and physically exhausted. It's just, it wasn't the experience that I'd hoped for. I wanted to breastfeed to have a bond with him, and I just felt like I'd just given birth to this human to keep alive, to just feed them, and I felt nothing else, and that was awful. But now I'm just putting him on formula, I'm able to enjoy him. My breasts are still really sore. I've been sent home from the hospital on more oral antibiotics, which I have to take for another week. It's just been an absolute horror story for me, and I wanted to put this video out there not to put people off. I absolutely agree with people that say that fed is best. It does not matter where the food is coming from as long as the baby's getting food and getting fed at the end of the day. I actually feel numb over everything I've been through. I can't actually believe what I've just been through over the last 12 days. My left breast has finally gone back down to normal, but my right is still rock hard and causing me a lot of pain. Yeah, it's just been a whirlwind of emotions really, and every situation that went wrong I just kept pushing through it, and I thought, oh, it can only get better. And it was just really disheartening when all I wanted was to breastfeed and have a really close bond with my baby. But at the end of the day, you can have skin-to-skin contact with your baby while giving them a bottle. You can still have that closeness. I wanted to put this video out there for mums who have an oversupply of milk, because you see all these videos about women who don't have enough milk, but when I looked up on YouTube, there was hardly any information about women with a massive oversupply of milk. And I just want to let you know that it's not all rainbows and flowers and unicorns that people make it out to be. It's not this natural, beautiful thing that just comes naturally. Like, you can't just grab your baby and plonk them on the breast and expect magic to happen, because they're learning what to do, you're learning what to do. And even if midwives tell you the latch looks great, it might not be great. I was told it looked great and I was still getting pain, and it's like, what do you do in that situation? I had so much help from multiple different people, and they all said your latch looked great, and no one could explain to me why I was still feeling the amount of pain I was feeling. And mastitis is no joke. It's absolutely no joke. I never thought I'd end up readmitted to hospital on IV antibiotics for mastitis, but it was a serious infection. I've had a cesarean, and after a week I felt completely back to normal. My breasts were causing me agony in comparison to my cesarean. That's saying a lot. A cesarean is major surgery. You're being cut straight through into your womb. Like, it's huge, it's a big deal, and my breasts are still more painful. But yeah, I know it's a super negative video, but I feel like it needs to be out there, and I wanted to share my experience with you. So Tyler is formula fed, and I don't feel guilty about it anymore, because I know that's what's best for me and for him. That's that really. My next video that I'll be making will be like introducing you to Tyler and talking about the cesarean, because oh my god, was that the most surreal situation I've ever been in my life. I will be talking to you about cesarean from start to finish, how I prepared myself, how I've recovered and everything like that. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you all soon. Love you all. Bye. He was so poorly, and why are you coming in mid-video?
I need a muslin.
It's in the nappy bag.
There isn't one there.
Oh no.
Thank you.